So I would like to ask the candidates that are here for the 8th District and the 31st District to please come to the platform. I see Rodney coming forward. I'm looking for Paul Hannosh, Paul Chabot, Lesli Gooch, and I believe that's everyone that's here tonight. If I've missed someone, I apologize. And in the interest of time, we will start with the candidates of the 8th District.
Ma'am, would you like us anywhere? Okay.
Okay, let's start with Rodney. Rodney Lee Conover.
Thank you, everybody. You guys in the back hear me? Y'all in the back can hear me? All right. Brace yourselves. I want to thank everybody. Thank Carolyn. And where is he? Thank you, John, wherever you are. Thank you to the Redlands Tea Party Patriots. It's good to be here. Last time I was here, I didn't get an endorsement I was trying to get, but I'm glad to see the young Republicans here. How about a hand for the young Republicans sitting right over there? Come on, guys. You know I love you. Eye contact. Come on, let's go. All right. And how about a big hand for y'all for coming out here tonight? That's right. Now, let's get something cleared up. There was a controversy over here. And I want to get something straight so everybody is clear on something where I stand. I am pro-beer. May I say that? I don't want any mix-ups on that, on the voter guide or anything else. My name is Rodney Lee Conover. I'm running for Congress in California's 8th District. Very close to here, very north of here. It's a very large district now. It's been cut up and gerrymandered, and oh, it's unbelievable how big this district is. It goes everywhere. But that's good. That's good. I have some good news and I have some bad news. Speaking of young Republicans, I went to Washington, D.C. That's right. I seem like an outsider, but I'm not. I'm actually an insider once in a while. I go to Washington, D.C. I have some friends there. I do. So, talk to some Republican consultants, Paul. And they told me, they said, Rodney, we're going to fix everything up with your young Republicans. You need to go out and get the youth vote. So I went to the mall. I went to Abercrombie and Fitch. Have you been there? If you haven't been there, don't worry. It's a horrible place. It's like a gentleman's club for mannequins. It's terrible. They sell these really expensive shirts, wrinkled shirts, and they sell old pants with holes in them and grease stains. And I looked at the retail price and it was, I couldn't believe how expensive they were. I went home and I looked in my closet. You know what I found? I got $17,000 worth of clothes in there. I'm sitting on a gold mine. So I didn't find anything more about the youth vote, but I do hope things will change with our youth, because I got a couple nephews living at my house, and I don't know. Am I an old fogey now? It just doesn't seem like when we were young. It just seems really different. They seem very entitled. But I do have good news and bad news. In the 8th District, you're going to more than likely have a Republican congressman in 2014. Yeah. Now, if one of them gets their way and couples up with a whole bunch of other Republicans in the establishment there in Washington, They're going to pass amnesty. And in a few short years, it's not going to be a Republican district, because you're going to legalize tens, if not hundreds of thousands of new Democrat voters. And that's going to happen. And you don't have to look any further than the evolution of Orange County since 1987 to figure that out. It's not brain surgery. Now, let me tell you something. You are your friends. You ever hear that? You are your friends. Usually I stand up and I talk about Obamacare and the Common Core and blah, 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 but this is the Tea Party. You guys already know all that stuff. So I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to tell you about who my friends are. All right? I've been a Republican activist for the better part of 30 years. 25 of those years on the entertainment side of politics. Many of you know my first job in showbiz was writing the Rush Limbaugh Show. From there, I went all over the world as an entertainer, making people in troops laugh and making bad television shows. And I had my own talk show on Sirius XM. I was Ann Coulter's speechwriter for 8 years. And those were my friends. Now let me tell you about when I ran Joe the Plumber's campaign in Ohio. I met a guy named La Tourette. He's a Republican, and now he and his family run something called the Main Street Republicans. They are funded 90% by left-wing labor unions and by connections and seed money from a guy named George Soros. This is a Republican super PAC. They are dedicated to the destruction of the Tea Party. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Save your questions. I'm sure you're going to have questions of Rodney. And let's hear from Paul Hannosh.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm running for the 8th Congressional District, and it would be an honor to serve the good people of this district. My name is Paul Hannosh, and I am a veteran, an oath keeper, and a school board trustee. Let's hear it for the oath keepers. All right, thank you. I'm also a biology and history teacher, and worked on the Pat Buchanan campaign as well as Ron Paul's campaign when he was running for president. And I've worked on, I was a volunteer for Greg Imus when he ran for Congress, and I was very disappointed that Greg didn't make it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running, because, you know, Paul Cook got some of his Democrat allies in that race to run a dirty campaign against a good and honorable man, and I'm going to defend his honor. And I'm endorsed by Sheriff Paul Schrader, and Sheriff Paul Schrader endorsed my campaign. And I'm also endorsed by the Republican Liberty Caucus of California and the Pomona Republican Caucus. And, you know, one of the things, just to give you a little background on me, I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-traditional marriage, and I am calling for the impeachment of Obama. Now, I'm a teacher, and Obamacare has affected me by about a $4,000 a year haircut based on increase in premiums. And that disaster is unconstitutional because the president can only propose legislation. He cannot rewrite legislation. Only Congress can do that. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm calling for his impeachment. And not only that, but I have a whole list of reasons. Targeting conservatives and Tea Party groups through the IRS, Gestapo, as well as the violation of our Fourth Amendment rights, where the government is collecting data, electronic data on innocent Americans without a warrant. and also for aiding and abetting the enemy, Al-Qaeda in Syria. Those are just a few of the reasons why Obama should be impeached. And I have a friend in Washington, D.C., who I'm sending a message to Paul Cook. And he's going to go there and say, hey, I got a message from Paul Hannosh. Why haven't you written up articles of impeachment for Obama? Now, I also am opposed to amnesty. No amnesty ever. We've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt when Reagan did it, and it was a colossal failure that just encouraged 11 million more to do the same. So, you know, I'm running against Paul Cook. He may be an okay guy for San Francisco, where, you know, his supporter, Charlie Munger, the billionaire who's destroyed the Republican Party in this state, that's where he lives. And, you know, he's part of that establishment that's the Republican Main Street partnership that is trying to attack Tea Party candidates and conservatives. Now, we're in the 8th Congressional District. It's the 87th most conservative district in the country, and we deserve better. Paul Cook is out of touch and out of step with our district. You know, he's got, it would be kind to call him a moderate, but he's got a 40% voting record with the scorecard. He's got an even lower voting record with the Heritage Foundation. So he's really a liberal. And as an assemblyman, he voted for AB 353, which basically banned law enforcement from confiscating vehicles, impounding vehicles from illegal aliens so they could drive without insurance or without a driver's license. And, you know, he says that he's against government snooping. Now, he took that from my website because I came out early against the violation of the Fourth Amendment, but he voted against the Justin Amash Amendment that would have protected our Fourth Amendment rights. But you know, his mailers that we're paying for through his franking privileges say otherwise. Now, he also supported the bank bailouts of 2008. He thought that was a great idea. By the way, we need to audit the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve. Okay, well, thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
I would say he made his positions very clear, don't you? I appreciate that. Unfortunately, the incumbent can't be with us. He's in Washington. Yeah. So we will now move to the 31st District, and we will start with the lady, Lesli Gooch.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm Lesli Gooch. It's an honor to be here with you this evening. I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for Congress for the 31st Congressional District to replace Congressman Gary Miller. I'm here, I want to tell you who I am. My grandfather moved here from Ohio when my dad was just a boy, and he moved here to give his family a better life. Here we are, we were the mecca of economic opportunity and great jobs, and he knew that his family could find a better life in Southern California. The same thing for my mom. Her family moved here when she was a girl for the same reason, for jobs, for economic growth. So where are we today? Today, we have in the Inland Empire an unemployment rate that's higher than the national average. And what do we see coming out of Washington? More regulations, more taxes on our job creators. This has got to stop. I'm your congressional candidate who can get things done in Washington. I'm your candidate who has a proven track record that even in the midst of all of this gridlock, I've worked to bring opportunity to the Inland Empire. Our companies here are buried in regulations and they're buried in taxes. So what did I do? Working in Washington, I helped get a bill passed, and by the way, it was in the midst of all of this gridlock. I helped to get a bill passed that for a company in Rancho Cucamonga, they're exporting $350,000 worth of exports every month because of a bill that I helped to get passed. There's a company in Colton, California. They're exporting $180,000 a month because of a bill that I helped to pass. There's a medical device company. They're exporting $200,000 a month. There are millions of dollars being exported from the Inland Empire because of a bill that I helped get passed. And one important thing that I want to point out to you all, we did that at no cost to the taxpayer. Now, when you look at the millions of dollars we're exporting here in California, and you compare it to the $2 billion that our nation exports, you see that we've got a problem, and we need to bring jobs back to the Inland Empire. We need to bring back economic opportunity for the Inland Empire, and that's why I'm running for Congress. I know how to do it. I have a track record of doing it, and I want you all to know that people around this world want to buy American products. We have the best products in the world. They want to buy American. And our government is standing in their way because they're putting the cost of American products out of reach because of the higher taxes, because of the regulation. It makes no sense that our government's in the way, and we've got to find solutions that don't cost money to make sure that our American goods are being exported. I had someone tell me a couple of weeks ago, he said, Leslie, we've got 18 ships that are delivering American goods across this world because of the bill that you helped get passed. And that's what we need in Washington. We need people who have real solutions and a track record for success. I'm not here tonight to pad my resume. I'm not here to sell books. I'm not here to add a title to the end of my name. I'm here because we need to keep this seat in Republican hands. And you know what? This is not a job for amateurs. We have to keep this seat. Everyone knows if we don't keep it, we lose it forever. That's why I'm running for Congress, and that's why I'm asking for your vote. We need someone who's going to ask the right questions when they're looking at policies in Washington. We need someone who's going to ask, does this bill advance liberty? We need someone to ask, is it constitutional? Does this reduce the deficit? And does this create jobs and economic development for the Inland Empire? That's the congressman you need in Washington. If we're divided, I'm going to tell you right now that we hand Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi another vote. In this district, we're handing them another vote for more taxes, more government, and more spending. And they're terrified of my candidacy. Pete Aguilar, the Nancy Pelosi chosen one here, sent out an email the day I announced, and it said, we're in deep trouble. We've been thrown a major curveball. They know they're in trouble, and they know we can hold this seat, but we've got to stay united, and we've got to do it together. So I'm asking for your support, and I'm asking for your vote. Let's hold this seat in the Republican hands. Thank you all.
Our last candidate is Paul Chabot.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I think we need to recognize Carolyn for putting together this outstanding event tonight. Thank you, Carolyn. Did a great job. I'll tell you, as a husband and father, my first 3 kids were girls. It's wonderful to have a lady in this race to bring civility from what we've seen here tonight. So thank you, Leslie, for joining the field with us. We appreciate it. Friends, we have a lot of work to do if we're going to save this congressional seat from falling to the Democrats. Our region is in trouble, our state is in trouble, and our nation is in trouble. We must do better to define who we are, or we will become a victim of our own doing. Surely we must stand for border security, but why? Because we are a nation of laws, and doing so is in the best interest of the America's future that we have all loved and fought for. We love immigrants and immigration done the right way. We are a nation of immigrants. My great-grandparents arrived here from Russia. They learned our language. They had 5 boys and 2 girls. Those 5 boys grew up to be men and fought in World War II. Great patriots. And speaking of patriots, look across this room. How many, if you're a military veteran or a spouse, will you please stand and be honored? And please rise. Look across this room, ladies and gentlemen. This is who we owe the freedom to, and God bless you, and thank you. Thank you for being here. Surely we believe that life begins at conception. We stand with the innocence of life because through our Creator, we know that life is precious. We believe in the Second Amendment and will fight for the right of us as gun owners, not because we are afraid, but because we are Americans, and it is our inherent right to do so. America must maintain the greatest military on the face of the earth. We must pursue evil and serve it justice. We must never allow for another Pearl Harbor or 9/11 ever again. God is part of our founding principles. Our Constitution does not evolve over time with one's opinion. It is the true state of consistency for which we must seek guidance, first through God as our founding fathers had. We must challenge corruption, cowards, and backroom Washington deals. We must have rigorous debate on all subjects, no matter the topic, because I still believe that the American people are the best on the face of this earth. And when voters have an opportunity to fairly see all sides, they will often make the right decision. A transparent form of government is required in a democracy, and we need term limits in Congress. We must fight for a balanced budget and living within our means and getting people off of welfare and into jobs. We must challenge the incrementalism that is crumbling away the very values of our society inch by inch and year over year. I challenge you to look at life not through your own lens, but through the lens of a parent, and ask yourself always, what kind of nation do I want children, my children, your children, to inherit? I encourage you to take a look at the card before you. This is my family, a wife and 4 kids. I'm up here fighting for their future and for our nation. And when you go to the Patriots webpage, what's the very first thing that you see? A little girl. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to remember that that is what we are fighting for, their future. We must challenge youthful selfishness and the world of Facebook, where too many of us spend our lives in an echo chamber of isolation and self-gratification. Life is here among us, the people of flesh and faith, with face-to-face conversations, many times often brutally honest, direct, but sometimes with love, compassion, and understanding. In California and in San Bernardino County, our Republican voting record has declined substantially compared to just 10 years ago. Republicans are voting in smaller numbers, and I believe it's because of their disdain for the word politics. We must rid ourselves of the notion that only the richest candidate has earned his or her place. We must rid ourselves of the kingmakers and shed a very bright light upon us to reveal the true meaning of public service. I will leave you with a thought, that our nations need true leaders of character, ethics, and morals, yet those lines have become blurred in today's society. Sunlight remains the best disinfectant, yet we see the echo chamber of liberalism making headway not only in government policy, but in the minds of our youth. While the world remains a dangerous place, you can see firsthand what happens to our nation when our enemy sees us as weak. We have a lot of work to do, but cannot fix the problems alone. I'm thankful to have served in the U.S. military for over 12 years and in law enforcement as a reserve deputy sheriff for nearly 19. The experience of fighting Al-Qaeda in Iraq or a dangerous parolee on the streets of San Bernardino have taught me much in life. You and I may not agree on 100% of the issues all the time. And as Reagan said, the person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend and ally, not a traitor 20%. As many of you know, I'm a pretty simple guy. I wear my values on my sleeve, and I'm here to serve. And God bless you, this country, and thank you very much for this opportunity to run for this office to represent you in Congress. God bless and thank you.
And I hope we have some questions for these four candidates.
Lee's going to ask the amnesty question, so I'm going to lead off with the question I asked before. What do you think is the solution? What do you think is the greatest problem or threat that America faces today?
Let's start with this side. Rodney?
Vladimir Putin is the biggest threat we have going right now, and I'll tell you why. Because he is exhibiting the same type of behavior that Adolf Hitler was in the mid to late 30s. We have a president that seems to only react when he shouldn't react. I don't know what is going on with our administration's foreign policy, but we have a country like the Ukraine with their behinds hanging out in the wind right now. We have other countries around the world that are looking to us as the former power who would maybe come to their rescue should something horrible happen to them like that is happening in the Ukraine. I'm neither an interventionist nor an isolationist, but we should be the superpower that is there with the threat to stop something like what is going on right now in the Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin is jumping into that void of leadership and will keep expanding as long as this administration is in power.
Thank you. Hannosh?
I believe that our economy and jobs are the most important thing facing America right now, because we're losing jobs left and right because of our income tax system. That's why I support the fair tax, and I handed out that flyer. The fair tax would abolish the IRS, get it out of our private financial affairs, and replace it with a consumption tax. The consumption tax is what our founding fathers originally intended for the United States, and they banned it from our Constitution for 123 years until they passed the 16th Amendment. So the fair tax, right now it's crazy. We basically slap a 22% tariff on all of our products based on our income tax system, which makes imports cheap and inflates the cost of our domestically produced goods and gives imports an unfair advantage. So we need to level the playing field with the fair tax, which has been endorsed by 73 congressmen.
Let's try to let the other people answer. I want to get the idea of what you think of the greatest threat, how to deal with it. Mr. Chabot.
How many of you think America's on the right track? Raise your hands. How many of you think Congress is doing a good job overall? Raise your hands. 2. Okay, God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem we have today is this. 2 things. We've got a lot of cowards out there, ladies and gentlemen, who are afraid to challenge the norm. And the norm is this incrementalism over time, which has really taken us down the path we are today. Look, I was raised by my grandmother who worked 33 years in the Pittsburgh steel mills. My parents divorced. I grew up poor on a dirt road, worked for everything that I had. But there's a sense of entitlement today of the new generation. And I worry about the future, because today when we look at how many people cower to backroom politics in Washington, D.C., the term politicians and what they do, it is not what our founding fathers had expected us of today. So because of that, our biggest threats are internal. They are ourselves with the cowards that do not lead as they should, and it's the incrementalism over time in our society where we begin to accept things that a generation ago, especially you people, the World War II generation, know that has harmed this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the biggest threat that we face as a country is this move by Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid to push our policies to bigger government, to push for higher taxes, and to try to take away our personal liberties. That's the biggest threat we face. President Obama ran on this message of hope and change, but what do we have? We have more of the same, more reliance on our government, less economic development and growth, and higher taxes and more government spending. That's not what we wanted. We believe that there needs to be a change, and if we don't make a change, that's a huge threat for us. If you look at this president, he's weak abroad. Somebody's already talked about that. Not only is he weak here, and we all know that, but look at what he's doing to us abroad. To me, when you look at the threat, this weak White House and weak Congress is affecting our global competitiveness. Where are the jobs going to come from? Where are we going to make sure that people have a decent living wage? It's through economic development. But what did we just see yesterday? The president is proposing $1 trillion in more taxes and more spending and more spending on a number of programs. That's the biggest threat we face, and we need to fix that by voting Republican.
Thank you.
We have a lot more questions here, so I will just say that our choice is to continue with the questions. We will not do a summation by each of the candidates, otherwise we'll run over. So after the meeting, if you hang out and want to talk to these people individually, that will probably be more useful anyway. So let's move on to the next question.
Yeah. As Rush said, we just need to tell Obama that Putin's a member of the Tea Party. That'll get his fighting spirit up. Lee.
Okay, hi. We keep talking about immigration, and over again, the American people do not want amnesty in any form and no legalization. And what I see coming in Washington is this constant veering to the liberal side. My question to you is, if you are elected, will you stand with the people against the establishment? Yes.
Well, I'm glad you asked. Are you familiar with Numbers USA? All right, go to that website. They give very few people in the United States their highest rating, true reformer. They gave it to me. See who they trust with that very question. The border needs to be secured before any other talk. And it needs to be secured as certified by our border states, not the federal government, but by Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Texas, before anything else happens.
It's a great question. I mentioned that I was no amnesty ever. When I actually ran for lieutenant governor in 2002, and one of my platform positions was to create a citizen border patrol to protect our border because the federal government wasn't doing enough to protect our border. So that's why I'm running for Congress. I will be a champion for putting Americans first, not the illegal alien lobby.
Chabot?
Thank you. I actually worked with Congressman Bono Mack on security, so absolutely no amnesty, but looking at security on our border, inside our country, and also what's coming up from Mexico with terrorism. I encourage you, actually did write a book on counterterrorism, counter-narcotics. As you know, we not only have gangs and thugs coming across our border, but I worked in our prison system as a parole board on the state parole board. Over 20%, we guesstimated, of the violent felon gang members tattooed head to toe were gang members who didn't care about this country. They were victimizing you and I, walking across this border consistently with no help from this administration, little help from Congress, and quite honestly, we should be ashamed of what should be a very simple solution.
I'm opposed to amnesty, and I think that's just another example of Washington not doing its job. We have de facto amnesty now because of the failed policies coming out of Washington. That's what we're faced with. And while they're not fixing the problem, we're paying for the problem. We're paying for Washington's failed policies. Here Washington is interfering with our ability to create jobs, creating more regulations, and they're not enforcing the laws that are currently on the books. So, you know, at the end of the day, we need to focus on enforcing the laws that are on the books. We shouldn't even be talking about amnesty at this point until they're willing to enforce the laws that are on the books. And I said the word until, but the truth is, at the end of the day, we're not going to do amnesty in this country, and I'll vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Dan. Before I retired, I was a teacher at Cal State San Bernardino and at UCR. I have 2 doctorates. I taught in the business and economics departments. And my own research shows that the economy of the United States is overregulated. As a matter of fact, we have an administrative cost, not a cost of remediation, but an administrative cost of 11% of our gross domestic product is due to dealing with all of these little well-meaning regulations. So I would like to hear from each of you quickly the 1 or 2 things that you are going to pursue to help reduce and remove as many of these well-meaning regulations as possible.
I agree with you 100%. And we have been fighting in Washington, and I will continue that fight to make sure that any government regulation that comes out of Washington, that they do a review. It's called a small business review to see what the impact is. The problem we have with this administration is they don't care what the impact is on our jobs. So they pass regulation after regulation, and there's no cost-benefit analysis. I was working on one issue, and it's called conflict minerals, and the administration wants to come in and require that companies track all the way back to the Democratic Republic of the Congo what source of these materials are and whether they're in the war-torn region of the Congo. The American businesses came out and said, all we're going to end up doing is spending $8 billion to hire lawyers and consultants to help us comply. We had a Congolese person come and testify before our committee that said it's not going to do anything to help the violence in the Congo. All you're doing is making yourself feel good by charging $8 billion to American businesses. That doesn't create jobs, and there are a million examples just like that. I appreciate your question.
Sir, I don't know where you went. I'd like to talk to you personally because I'm a small business owner and I struggle with this daily. I'm also a veteran-owned small business. We can talk about regulations that are nonstop. Look, we have regulations that hamper our ability within small business, within loans, within production, with overstate, with so many products. And my solution for this is the Inland Empire has got one of the highest concentrations of unemployed veterans in the country. Over 250,000 veterans live throughout our region. Our Congress and our VA system has largely neglected our vets. We can get them back to work to become small business owners because they're smart and they know how to cut through regulation. We didn't deal with this nonsense in Iraq when we were fighting the enemy. We didn't have to deal with the bureaucracy. We are trained to fight to win wars. When bureaucracy gets into place, it slows us down. So my mission is to get more of you and us as veterans into office as possible, to represent us, to make common sense of what's going on in society today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, that's why I support the fair tax. It will simplify our tax system. It'll wipe out the $300 billion in compliance costs that our companies are having to pay every year. And, you know, it'll be the biggest transfer of power from politicians back to the people. Because with the fair tax, it's transparent. And the politicians can't hide their, favoritism for one business over another. When politicians get to pick the winners and losers in our economy, most of us wind up as losers.
The question is about regulation. You know, the CEO of Home Depot said that he would not open the Home Depot today in this market because of regulation, because of the onerous regulation that comes out of Washington. It seems like the entire reason for the existence of Congress is to pass regulations. In addition to the analysis of every single regulation that comes across my desk, I would eliminate the EPA. I would vote and push to eliminate. That was an easy one. The Department of Education, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, and I would take the remaining tasks necessary and push them over to other departments. They're completely unnecessary things.
We're at a decision point here, folks. It is 9 o'clock. We can conclude the meeting or we can hold it for another 5 or 10 minutes. So how many of you are willing to hold over for another 5-10 minutes? Okay. Looks like it's about half. How many of you want to conclude? All right, I think that we can hang out for another 5 minutes, but let's make our questions as quick as possible and
As Bill O'Reilly says,
as specific as possible so they can be yes or no answers.
These debates that we've had this evening have been very meaty. They've been informative. They've touched a lot of important issues that we're dealing with in this country. As I travel around Redlands and other places, I get this kind of question: why does the Tea Party talk about abortions? Why do they talk about gay marriage? What I've concluded in my own mind is these discussions on those social subjects are not going to win votes for anybody. People are not going to change their minds. Stay with this kind of topic and we can win.
Response, comments? It was kind of a variation on, her position is we shouldn't be talking about abortion or gay marriage. We should disregard that.
I'll talk about it. Yes, we should talk about social issues. I beg to differ. First person I voted for was Ronald Reagan, and he was criticized greatly for just exactly what you're talking about. And he talked about social issues. He talked about them daily. And guess what? Landslide. So yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Mr. Hannosh?
Yeah, you know, there's a big tent. The Tea Party stands for taxed enough already, but each one of us, you know, can bring our particular issues to the forefront. And so, you know, I'm not only a fiscal conservative, but I'm also a social conservative. So I don't see a problem with that. I think we need to broaden the base.
Mr. Chabot?
I'm a daddy. I've got 4 kids. I was there to watch all 4 being born. Not the pleasant experience the first time when they come out and go, "Isn't your daughter beautiful?" My first thought was, really? But you learn. Having seen the life and just the beautiful, what God has done for us, to me, I will fall on my sword and fight that to the day I die. I love kids, and I'm not going to let them down, and I will continue to fight for life.
I appreciate everything everyone has just said, and I am in agreement for the most part. At the end of the day, though, we need to hold this seat away from Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. We have to do that. And so I understand what some of the people that were talking to you are saying. We've got to make sure that we're a party that comes together and we rally together. I used to teach a political science class called Parties in America. And the goal was always for whichever the other party was, to exacerbate the differences in our party. That's unfortunately what we're seeing happen right here. This is the battleground district. This is the seat that Nancy Pelosi thinks she can win back. So we need to stay united and we need to win this seat. And that's where, if someone doesn't agree with us on the life issue, we need to say, you need to be a part of us, because we also believe in economic development and we believe in bringing the Inland Empire back using Republican values. That's what we need to tell people. Thank you.
Thank you. Never let go of the microphone. That's the first rule of doing this.
I thought that's what you were doing before. I don't have to tell you guys now, but it's crunch time, isn't it? Let's see, instead of asking you what you are going to do, what you're willing to do, I want to ask you what you're willing to sacrifice. Now, I'm doing a little math here. I taught math a long time ago, so I kind of still know how the math works. That any one of you going into office is going to be probably paid about 8 times as much as a soldier. And I've heard of tales where soldiers going through storms of bullets, sometimes even jumping on hand grenades. So when I ask what you're willing to do, are you willing to take that windowless seat 6 blocks away from the Capitol? Are you willing to be stripped of all committees? Are you willing to be defunded by RNC, DNC? I don't know if we have up here. If it means staying within the limits of the Constitution. That's what I want to know.
Let's start from the left side this time. Ms. Gooch?
you to know that the reason that I'm here, I said this before, was not for my resume, not for a title. It's to protect this seat. I'm a policy person. I have worked toward good public policy. That's what I've done for my career on behalf of the Inland Empire. And when it comes to sacrifice, I'm sacrificing right now to run for this seat because I care enough about this seat. I have resigned from my job so I could do this full time. That's the sacrifice that I've made. I believe in making sure that in Washington, our libertarian principles, advancing liberty, defending the Constitution and reducing the deficit and bringing jobs back, I believe it's so important that I've been willing to sacrifice my job to come here and fight for you. My husband's a retired Army officer. I understand about sacrifice. I'm a military wife. I understand the sacrifice that he made for his family, and I am willing to take that sacrifice because this is important. We must hold this seat for Republicans.
Mr. Chabot?
We're going to have to make this our last question, so let's wrap it up.
I couldn't think of a better question to maybe end the night on. God bless you, sir. That's the question we need to be asking every single public servant. Washington is bought and paid for by lobbyists, gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, it goes back to the courage issue that we talked about. Look, I've been a reserve deputy sheriff for 19 years. You know how much I get paid to go out on patrol in the streets of Muscoy and San Bernardino and other areas? Zero. I do it because I love my country and community. In the military, I gave up my government job to go to Iraq to serve because I love my country. My wife and I founded Coalition for Drug-Free California, which I get paid nothing for, to keep kids off drugs in our community, because out of service to community and country. There's a difference between having life experience and running for Congress or being a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. and wanting to hold the job. We've got to relate with the people because we've been with the people and we know exactly what service is like. God bless you. Thank you for that question.
I understand where you're coming from, and I'm willing to put it all on the line. I'm taking on some very powerful lobby groups, the Federal Reserve, the banking system, the income tax, and lobbyists in general. I'm willing to put my neck out on the line, as well as attacking the Islamic terrorism that is facing our country. So I was up all night driving across the state for a fundraiser. I could be spending time with my family, but I'm willing to sacrifice for my daughter's future. She's 2.5 years old, and I don't believe that she's going to have a future like we've had. We're losing what we have in this country because not enough good men and women are willing to take the sacrifice of running for office. And so I salute all of these men and women here that are willing to sacrifice and run for office.
Last summer, I had the honor of speaking before Ted Cruz at the Restoration Weekend. In a couple weeks, in 10 days, he's coming here to LA, and I'm introducing him here. The first piece of legislation that I'm going to craft and jam down the throats of everybody in Congress is I'm going to force Congresspeople and senators to spend a minimum of 6 months in their districts, in the area that we live in. Because I'll tell you why. A, we got the technology to do it now. Businesses save millions and billions of dollars with Skype and with email. Why doesn't our legislatures, why doesn't our Congress do that? It's ridiculous. And if they had to spend time in their districts, at the barbershops, at the restaurants, and at the Little League games, they'd be far less apt to be ripping you off and the shenanigans that goes on with the lobbyists and cutting deals with the Democrats. That's why. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I get there. Thank you for your question, sir.
Before we wrap it up here, we have two candidates that couldn't make it here tonight. One, Dr. Wong advised me that John Valdiva has some family issues and precluded him from being here. And in all fairness, I'm going to give Jan Lesia, who is an aide to Paul Cook, 30 seconds to tell us why Paul could not be here tonight.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody being here tonight. You guys have all done a great job. I know how difficult it is to run for office, and good luck into your future endeavors. But Paul sends his regrets tonight. As you know, and Mr. Conover brought this up, the Ukraine and Russia issue as being one of the top issues. Paul serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee, And today he's been in committee hearings all day in regards to the Ukraine and Russian crisis. And as a retired colonel, he's a hawk, but he believes in a strong America. And frankly, today his time has been better served in DC in those hearings to make sure that the Obama administration doesn't do something stupid. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and keep up the good work, and God bless America.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for staying over. My apologies to the two questioners that didn't get their chance, but I know the candidates will stay over. I'd like to just say thank you to Richard Marshall and James Fields for handling the timing. I thought they did a good job. And that's all, folks. Thanks again for being here.